I'll just turn up the modulation. I'll turn up the deviation on my radio here. Tonight's tonight's speaker is Howard White, Dr. Howard White, KY6LA, who's been a long-term member of the DX Club, and he's a quiet station, and of course, weak station. So, Howard, I'm going to turn it.
They are. In modern radios, the 21st century, we started having fast enough computer chips to actually hear the whole thing. Today, all radios that are currently manufactured are software-defined radios. Nobody's wasting their time or energy trying to improve the old superhet technology anymore. Although Dennis doesn't believe that. I'll skip some of that. Basically, it's all software. It's math. For those of you who remember, didn't take new math in school, the old math works still well. If you own a cell phone, it's an SDR. Every one of these things is a software-defined radio. They're not superhets anymore. And I always tell people, the world has changed. Hams are finally catching up. Okay, here's what an S meter is. And I've gone through days and weeks and months of arguments about S meters. The old analog S meter was a thing that measured the signal across the AGC line. That's all it's doing. It's a guess as to how strong your signal is by how strong your AGC is when it kicks into it. It's not really a measure of the noise. Oh, it's a lot. It's a riot. And it goes up there. Oh, you got S0, you got S69. Oh, everybody's at 599, right? Come on. So by definition, it's basically 50 microvolts across, so 50 microvolts across 100K resistor, 50 microamps across 100K resistor, 50 microvolts. That's the definition of it. Modern radios measure things in dBm. And I'll put a chart up in a second explaining what dBm are. I've been thinking dBm so long, I have a hard time looking at S units and stuff like that. But that's me. I'm an engineer. I have to think. And S9 is minus 73 dBm. It's counterintuitive. The number gets larger as the signal gets quieter, but it's going minus, so it's getting smaller typically. S0 is minus 127 dBm. So if you want to have a decent signal, you want to see your noise level, your noise line should be around S0. If you much more than that, you got problems, you got to go looking for it. Now, also it helps be different areas you are in, what frequency are. I'll show you some charts of that. Absolute zero is minus 143 dBm. If someone's telling you they're getting 7 dBm, it's not possible. And I've seen specs on QST where minus 145 dBm. Impossible. But it's like there. That's a chart which I just picked up from a thing which sort of puts it microvolts. Remember microvolts? 50 microvolts S9. It's minus 73, minus 121 dBm. And so S0 is minus 127. That's the right way to measure your noise, right way to measure your signal. All modern radios hear too much. That's what Rob Sherwood said, and I still agree with him. Most radios hear too much. That's one of the reasons why you get all that noise. They actually work too well for the real world. I'll put up a chart. It'll show you what the real world looks like. You realize that your radios are better than the real world. That's a chart of the real world noise. I wish I had a pointer. We don't have a pointer. You'll see the difference. The dark line there is residential noise. So around 80 meters, your residential noise can be S9. And there's not much you can do to get rid of it. If your neighbors are noisy and got all kinds of crap, it's really hard to get rid of a lot of it. I'm going to concentrate mostly on the crap that you generate in your own house, which is probably half the noise that you're hearing. But you can't get below certain levels. If you're quiet, like Dennis's contest station, where you're out rural, you're going to get much, much lower signal noise and much, much less crap. And these are some old charts that were done up showing the minimum discernible signal at different radios, different frequencies, versus what they can hear. And some of the radios will hear well below. You just look at the blue line with the preamp on, it's hearing well below any noise, any basic atmospheric noise. They're hearing too much. They actually do too good a job, which is something that most people think, oh, I got to get the more sensitive radio. No, you don't really. You just want to get rid of the noise. And here's what I was doing looking for noise. I actually have a noise sniffer, which I'm happy to let you borrow. And you can go around looking for stuff and you can hear it with it's on all this little simple diode with a little meter and an antenna, and picks up a lot of crap. And you can find things that are actually noisy.
Broadband or
It just picks up crap. It's a Yagi.
Supposed to be down around 126 to hear the worst of it.
Yeah, something like that. And you hear a lot of it. But there's you can walk by things. I've walked by guys' wall warts and the damn thing just blows my eardrums out. It's amazing what you can hear. Yeah. That's the peak of the worst part. You know, that's an old picture because I had hair. For me, that was hair. First place you do, and actually I'll go back before I get into grounds. First place to do is you walk into your house, take a battery, 12-volt battery, hook your radio up to a 12-volt battery and shut down every breaker in your house. If your noise goes up, you got a problem in your house. That's the first test. Before you fix the grounds, before you fix anything else, that's the first place you do it. Take a 12-volt battery, hook it up to your radio, and shut your breakers down. And then if the noise goes away, one breaker at a time until you find the offending one. 90% of the time it's a wall wart, or it's a router, or it's a computer, but it's in your house. And then your wife turns on the microwave oven and blows everything up. Which I have done, which Dennis and I have done.
Well, I'm having some significant noise issues on 8 meters, and it's getting worse and worse. And we got an email from SDG&E today, and they're going to turn off our power for 3 hours on March 8th.
Oh, that's great.
And so
You better have batteries set up to run your radios.
part of that I'll do our house. Maybe that'll fix it, but if it doesn't, then we'll see what, if we get down there.
Okay.
My favorite little story is that suddenly the whole spectrum, you turned down SDG, but it was a bell transformer. We live in 100-year-old houses. And maybe across the street, had a bell transformer that the lamination started over. And so because she wasn't around, SDG needed to shut her down. And it went away. And then I went to talk to her and she said, yeah, that thing started making noise up there. It was like a buzzer, just constantly across the whole.
Welcome to or fans in your house. There's another song. Any electric motor will do it. Okay, let's talk about ground. Well, the first place to start with is looking at RF ground. And we'll get into the difference between RF grounds and other grounds, because everybody confuses ground all the time. Oh yeah, I have a ground lead on my power plug. That's the ground for my radio. No, it isn't. It's not. The first rule is to have good RF ground, and RF ground is very different. We'll get into why it's different. And you want it very short, very close to the station. You want a single point, big ground bus, and you want very low impedance ground leads. So a nice big wide braid works really well. And that's what grounds are. And we'll get into some of the pictures of some. Single point ground, that's something that most people don't understand. They say, oh yeah, it's going to the ground bus, going to the ground bus, going to the ground bus. The ground bus is over there, the ground bus here. No, it ain't. One point. I'll show you some pictures of one. This, I have been to more guys trying to fix their noise, and they think, oh, I got using the ground on the power line. 90% of the time, those are not ground. They're not even close to ground, and they're definitely not RF ground because they're miles away from your real ground, which is the ground rods outside your house. And I have been to so many houses where you say, oh, take it off. That's not the ground. Look at the other real ground, and suddenly the noise goes away. It's always amazing to me. People think that that's a real ground. It's not. Not for RF. It's not an RF ground. That is also not an RF ground. That's my tower. And it's going to a bunch of ground rods to keep the lightning out of the house. And it is not the RF ground for your radio station as much as you think it is. It's not. It's just a tower ground. But I've been to places where people think that's a ground. It's not. And we talked about my favorite thing, which is called ground loops, which is you get on your station, you start talking to somebody, and somebody says, "You're coming through the TV set. You're coming through the radio. You're coming through the stereo. You're coming through your neighbor's stereo." It's the ground loops. Because as you look at it, you'll see they're all going to this ground thing. They're all loop around because they're all going to separate grounds. It's not a single point ground, so they're all going to loop into each other. This is what a single point ground looks like. Everything's coming to one point. So each one has a separate ground lead. They don't share, they don't cascade, they go down a single point. And that length has got to be short. Shorter the better. 30 feet's the maximum you ever want. But you want a single point all over the place. Nothing more than a quarter length, or else it's going to be impedance, and it's not a ground, it's up floating in the middle of the air. And
Are you going to talk about artificial ground?
Yeah, that's coming up. That's what my RF ground looks like. You'll see copper pipe there, and it's a bunch of ground rods. I have 3 8-foot ground rods, 1/2-inch ground rods. They're 4 feet apart. They're connected by half-inch copper pipe. They're all soldered, not welded. So they're not a lightning ground. If lightning hits it, it's going to melt. The other ones are solid. And I have that all as and that's my single point ground. And it's a very good ground.
So 3 8-foot ground rods would be as good as one really deep ground rod.
I'm just trying to think. I have really shitty soil.
Yes, why I said it's 40.
Yeah, I mean, I got 3 8-footers in there by having crews dig and, jackhammers and all the rest of it to finally get in.
I figured that's
And it has my conductivity to the ground is terrible. So I put 3 in. One would do it fine if you've got wet, if you got wet, loamy soil, it's fine. I
because
just,
I read somewhere it needs to be, like 30 feet deep, and I'm like, it's no way. It's not happening.
it depends on the soil and the conductivity of the soil. Yeah, and you can actually measure. You can actually measure your conductivity. And I did the measurements of my conductivity. The first one, it was like shit. 2 was like less than shit. And 3 was enough less than shit that I could actually think it was a ground. But I actually measured it first. And that's how I ended up with 3, because I figured it was finally enough that was within an acceptable number. And that's what the soldering looks like. They're soldered, they're pipes, and they're all connected together. And I use pipes rather than, I use copper pipe, and that's fine. The currents on the outside of the pipe doesn't really matter. And I use bigger pipe, like 1/4 inch or 1/2-inch pipe, because it made lower impedance. And that's what a single point looks like. Everything is terminated to one spot. So every device in my shack goes with a braided cable to that one spot. And if you take it off and put it somewhere else, you can actually pick up the noise, and you start transmitting when it's off there. You can say, "Holy God, there's a ground loop." You can actually see it. You can actually hear it.
So like that, so that picture's that's in your hand.
Yep. And you notice my inside ground rod in the shack is basically copper pipe. I use copper pipe because it's not that expensive, at least the wall.
Through the wall out.
Yep. Through the wall to the outside. That's why it's also not the lightning ground. Lightning ground is over there with the tower. because I do not want that one to be the lightning round. Now, see how it's all connected together? Ah, this is my favorite device ever invented by MSJ. I have lived in apartment buildings. I've been on the 19th floor. And when I would turn on my transmitter, I could light up every TV in the entire building and the building next door. And I discovered MSJ invented this thing called an artificial ground, which actually we used to use in the Army as counterpoises and stuff like that, where you basically tune out the impedance. So you fool the radio into thinking that it's got a ground. I absolutely love these things. I've given them to people who've had problems. I think I give you one. I gave everybody one. I bought them and given them to people because they solve a lot of problems. I probably have one around. I don't need them. I got real ground. But if you're on a second floor of a house, put one of these in. It's worth doing it. Unfortunately, you have to tune it every time you change frequencies, but it makes a huge difference to your radio. And it's not, they're like 40, 50 bucks at one point. They're really cheap. It's not carrying a lot of current, but what it's doing is it gets rid of the impedance to ground and it makes the radio think it's at ground. It gets rid of the ground loops. Highly recommend them. They're probably the best thing that ever invented by MFJ, and it's not total crap. Let's see what happened. Okay, let's talk about power. Naked AC power. Sure.
What about ground to outdoor water?
Depending on where the outdoor water faucet is connected to. You don't know.
You don't know if it's compromised. They throw it in the sheet and
You don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we can't do that.
A lot of them are fiberglass.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know where it's going. I mean, I've tried it, well, what you can do is you can measure it and see what the impedance are. But I guarantee you it's probably not correct. You'd be surprised at what people think are ground. Let's talk about AC power. Naked AC power is not particularly noisy. It picks up everything it's like having these giant antennas built into your house, guaranteed to collect all noise possible, put it into your radio. It is probably the dirtiest source of power you can have. Never run your radio station off AC power, at least not directly. You have to clean it up in some way or another. And I've got all kinds of ways of doing that. One thing that works pretty good is UPSs. If they're good sine wave UPS, and they'll clean up the power and clean up the crap. I use UPSs for everything. I use DC powers for everything. Although I've recently found, and I think I've got a good picture of one of these. Some UPSs, unfortunately, are noisy. So you got to be careful as to what you do. You think you've got a good UPS, you put a scope on it. Remember what scopes were? Put a scope on it, you see all this crap showing up on top of the so-called AC that's there. A lot of these AC things to save money, they're really square waves or just noise generators again. So all the things you think are going to be quiet turn out to be noisy. Theoretically. No, some of them. Yeah. Yeah, cheap ones. Expensive ones aren't. Okay, DC power. Most DC power can be very quiet. I run my stations off batteries, always have. They work really well. And I was relating the story of the guys. We were traveling in France as usual, and I'd rent a car, and I would go to a hotel, and I would go give the bellman €5 or something like that. I said, take the battery out of my car, bring it up to my room so I have a radio power set. I've done that so many times, but you got to limit to how long you're on the air because you won't be able to start the car anymore. I've actually done that enough times that. If you're talking about DC power is really good. Most switching power supplies are total crap. The cheap ones for sure are total crap. Put MFJ power supplies, DC power supplies on scopes, and you just see this garbage coming out of them. And like, what was the point? You might as well just run off AC power. Some of the good ones, some of the Astron linear power supplies are actually quite good. I use a bunch of Astron 50 amp power supplies to feed my batteries, and they work pretty good. Basically, battery DC power is almost noise free. So run everything you possibly can off DC power if you can get it. That is a cheap way to get DC power, you know, a battery tender that you use. And I'm going to tell you something. They're terrible, particularly the ones you get at Walmart. We found that out the hard way. This is a nice way of doing it. Is if West Mountain Radio makes that power gate. I have a bunch of them. I use them. They work really well if you connect them the right way, and they work really badly if you connect them the wrong way. And the right way is to have them support sourcing off the power supply to the power supply feeding the battery to the radio, and they work really well. If you don't, but if you let the battery power supply feed the radio, they don't work that well. So that's the best way. You'll notice how it's all set up. The radio's running off the battery. The power supply is running off. The battery is running off the power supply. So the noise is kept out of the circuit. That's the right way to run it. The other way is the wrong way to run it. And the difference in noise level can be dramatic, 2, 3, 4 S units. And you don't even, how do I go back? Yeah. Page down. Left didn't work. That didn't work. Page. I can't see. I'm blind. So
See, none of these are working right.
no,
Page down.
tried it.
No, it's not.
Can't do it. That's the right way to do it. That's sorry about that. The other way is you connect the radio to the middle terminal. I don't like it that way. That's not the right way to do it. This is the correct way to do it. It's the way they don't always tell you to do it that way, but that's the right way to do it. Okay, I found this on QST. I actually read QST occasionally, and the guys in Ukraine, Rig Expert, have made what they claim to be quiet, RF quiet. I haven't tested it, but they claim it's an RF quiet DC power supply. If it's in fact what they claim is true, and I wish somebody would buy one so we could test it, it's probably a great solution. And that way you can
2 hour deadly quiet. May not be the best word.
it comes from Ukraine. What do you expect? It's deadly. Hey, look, it only cost us $70 billion. We give them $70 billion, we get a quiet DC power supply. Well, it's a fair trade. I haven't tested a power supply in about 5 years. The last ones I put on a scope were pretty shitty. It's amazing what they think is quiet and what I think is quiet are very different. And you've got to look on a scope. This is what I like. This happens to be one of my stations. And your primary source of noise in your house is somebody's wall warts. And one of the things you can do is just disconnecting them. The noise goes away. You find that none of these have any filtering in them, or at least 99% of them have no filtering in them. Some of the Apple ones aren't bad. Some of the other ones are real awful. They have, I mean, look at, you get these tiny little USB charger things. They're this big. Where's the filtering? The filtering for 40 or 80 meters has got to be about this big. It doesn't fit in there. I don't know where they're getting rid of the noise. So you got to watch that. So one of the things you do when you're looking for noise in your house is look at all your wall warts, which is why I told you to use the breaker trick of shutting the breakers off. If the noise goes away, probably a wall wart. If it isn't, it's probably a router. Don't use them if you can avoid them. That's what my DC power looks like. It's a real mess, but it's, I run off pure DC power, everything. I've always run off pure DC power. It makes such a difference to listen. You've been in my place, you know how quiet everything is. And it's like, you don't hear, I mean, I live 2,900 feet from the towers at Mount Soledad. They're real shit. They produce more crap than ever. And then the Navy brings a ship in, the radar thing goes on and all the other crap. And my station's still quiet. So it's there. Here's how I get my 5-volt power supply. I actually have a 5-volt bus as well. I have a 12-volt bus and a 5-volt bus. And everything's either 12 volts or 5 volts. It's not very complicated. Very simple, very easy to do. That's my 5-volt set. So I have lots of power. I have everything running off power strips. I'm using still Anderson power poles, which are not the greatest connectors, but they work. They're easy to swap out and they're gender neutral.
You have multiple batteries in parallel. Can they be noisy?
Batteries?
Yeah, if they're
Multiple-
not, if they're not exactly the same voltage.
No. No, because they're DC. And you notice I have multiple batteries in parallel. That's my parallel power point. Actually, there's even more there. And there's an Astron power supply feeding it, and it then feeds the batteries. I actually have more batteries now. I never have enough batteries.
How big are those batteries?
They're probably 150 amp hours each. They're huge and they're heavy. I keep on buying more of them. For a while, we got some really good deals out of the airports because they obsoleted them. And
Sorry?
what?
I didn't touch it.
For a while, we got really good deals out of the airports because they have a lifetime of 2 years and then they have to swap them out. And the other places was the hospitals. But now they're getting really hard to get those. Hospitals had medical equipment that 2 years old, they have to legally swap their batteries out. The batteries are perfectly good. They're good for another 5 or 6 years at least. And we can get really good cheap deals on gels, basically huge gel cells. So
You ask permission or you just go to the patient's room?
I take my little Nokia friend with me. And we give them an offer they couldn't refuse.
Use the pillow first.
Another source of noise. And I actually use I put DC power for my routers, my Wi-Fi systems, my switches, which is one of the reasons why I have the 5 volts and the 12 volt buses. Your internet connections, if they're running off a wall wart, are going to be noisy. Guarantee you. Your Ethernet cables are giant antennas. And they're going to put noise all over the place. Your routers, your switches in your house are all noise sources. You'd be shocked at how much noise you generate. I'm willing to bet that 90% of your noise is inside your house, not from your neighbors, not from around. Use Cat 6 or Cat 7, the highest quality cable you possibly can. Keep the noise down. Connect to a single point ground. Again, all your routers and everything else, I have these big cables. I have these big braids all going back to the same single point. And it's amazing. If you haven't got one on, you can disconnect. You'll see this shit go up on the screen. Oh God, look at that. There's noise. Single point ground. Noise went. And we're not talking transmitting. This is just on receive. Transmit, you don't know what the hell you're sending out.
Are you gonna talk about ferrite?
Yep, it's going to get there. Okay, your computer. There are different quality power supplies in your computer. It's not a very difficult thing to change on an ATX, but there's some good brands and there's some noisy ones. The cheap Chinese ones, which is most of them today, are pretty noisy still because they're not looking for RFI. There are better ones that are very expensive. UPS filtering every line, ferrites on everything you possibly can. You never have too many ferrites on things. I'll get into what you want. Shielded monitor cables. I was going to suggest HDMI and DVI are brought the best. The RGB cables and all the other cheaper ones, the older ones are really bad. They never thought about shielding. The newer ones have to shield because they're carrying much higher frequency signals. You can build a shield enclosure, but I think you're killing yourself, and ground your closures if you have to. And here's one that really threw me for a loop. I was used to get all these really bad ground sounds where my radio connections in the computer, the connection chassis connections were acting as diodes and rectifying my RF signals and then putting out squeals and squawks on 20 meters and 30 meters. And finally found out it was just bad connections, like bad chassis connections, which I soldered together, and so they went away. But again, it's one of these tough things to find. And keep your PCs away. If you've got an SDR, unfortunately, PCs are close. Ferrites. You ask the question, there they are. Lots of different kind. You never have enough ferrites. I've gone in with Dennis a few times on multiple buys of ferrites, mostly type 31s. And you can never put too many ferrites on. Here's the line. Never, when in doubt, use a type 31. And if you still have a problem, put another type 31 on. And if you still have a problem, put another type. At some point, you have enough type 31s on there. It's no noise. Nothing else gone out, but no noise. Okay, here's a dirty little secret. Don't tell N6KI.
That's okay. It's.
And don't tell anyone else, I'll have to kill you. Legacy radios, which is the kind of radio that Dennis swore up and down about for years, are bloody noisy. They generate their own noise in the superhet circuits, which most people don't realize. That superhet conversion puts in distortion into your signals, puts in all kinds of S units. You get a lot of crud, basically. 1 to 2 S units of crud coming in from your old legacy radio. And you don't know it's there because you don't hear it. It destroys your minimum discernible signal. So it just destroys, it supposedly has a minimum discernible signal of minus 125, but you're hearing S2. But because you have an analog meter, it thinks it's S0, which is wrong. So multi-conversion radios, supercats, your old car radios, the old Kenroads, all the other ones, they made noise. They look like these. The direct conversions are quick. We'll get into direct sampling in a minute. This is what a multi-stage HF radio looks like. Remember this from the old, remember we took ham radio exams, and they used to have you draw a diagram of HF radio and all the rest of it. You can't buy one of these today pretty well, except maybe Dennis still has some. You resemble that remark, yeah. Yeah, helicrafters. Come on. Noise comes in, you see where those X's and mixers? They generate noise. They generate sidebands. They generate all this crap. And then you have to put filters in to get rid of the sidebands of all the noise they generate. So they make things worse rather than better. Oh, I like that. Slightly more modern radios, about 1980, we started putting in DSP filters to get rid of the crap. So you have a spectrum of noise coming in. Say you had some roofing filters to keep the size of the band down to say 65 megahertz. Then you had a single conversion down to 455. Remember those days? And then you had that down to 36 kilohertz for second conversion, 2 conversion radios. Oh, those are really good, really selective. You can build good filters like that. Yeah, ADC converter, and suddenly you had a radio. Not great. The roofing filter, you had more distortions going in. And there's the radio that generates that. I think it's an ICOM. So they don't hear that good, in spite of the fact that you think they do. There's a lot of crap. Here's the direct conversion radio. This is what most things you have today are. Any new radio you're buying is a direct conversion, direct sampling radio. Basically, it's a direct sampling radio. They hear the whole radio spectrum. They have a computer that's fast enough that picks pieces of it, converts it to audio, and bang, you're there. It doesn't add any distortion other than digitization distortion, but it doesn't add noise other than some of the noise that the circuits make. And that's what a direct conversion chain looks like. That's an older technology. It's about 2000, 2005, 2010. I actually owned one of those at one point. Here's a direct sampling radio. That's a direct conversion radio, what it looks like. Here's a direct sampling. This is probably the way this is actually the slide that shows, this is the way that every modern radio and every cell phone is built today. Fast computer chips, they're going so fast they can hear everything. They sample everything. They actually sample the noise as well, but they can at least do something with it. And more important is they don't generate the noise themselves. They don't make more noise. That's the big difference in technology, which is why you're starting to hear these really weak ones now. You take 250 megahertz signal, bring it down to 60 megahertz, and then break it up into pieces. So you can hear huge pieces. I'm going to skip a lot of this stuff because we can get into stuff. I'll skip out of that. That's a third generation architecture, which is what basically we're seeing right now. You know, all kinds of filters and computers and all that. And if somebody wants to ask questions, I can explain it all to, but I don't think I'll go into that much detail because we're actually more about noise. You notice everything's in one little box and it gets done. Whoops, I went too far. Oops. What? I don't have no idea how to get back. Well, guess what? Yeah, go back a few.
Let's see if we can help you here.
Good luck. We're talking transit. I'm going to skip over some of this anyway, so
Want to go further?
go back.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, done. Okay,
Stop there.
good enough. There's examples of third generation direct sampling radios, but your ICOM 7610, almost anything you buy today is a direct sampling radio. I'm actually going to skip a lot of this because this will go on forever. Here's an example of various different radios. ICOM 7800. This is a screen that was done before the Russian invasion, whenever that was. Comparing the various radios, and they're receiving a two-signal test, going through a radio. And you'll notice how much cleaner a SDR is compared to superhet radios. That's basically what the point of the screen is. See all the crud? Look at the crud in the K3. Dennis tells me this K3 here is better. And I'm telling you, you can buy a 15-year-old SDR, it'll beat the hell out of a K3. Usually you'll hear stuff that the K3 can't hear because it's got all that crud it's produced. But look at a pure direct sampling radio on a two-tone test coming through. How clean that is. You can do all kinds of things with this thing. I'm not going to go and sell radios. Jump through some of this. Talking about transmitting. That's what a perfect signal should look like. They never do, but that's what a perfect signal should look like. So let's skip. That was I shared a stage with Walter Pratt, who invented pre-distortion on transmitters at Friedrichshafen, and we had a nice chat. So he let me have some of his slides. And I don't know if you don't know what pre-distortion is, but you sample the signal coming out of your radio and you go back into your amplifier and you adjust the amplifier so that you get rid of the distortion that your amplifier is creating. So you can produce really clean, pure signals. And it goes commercially now by the name of Pure Signal. The and a couple of other brands have them. Where you put a pre-distortion signal. It was invented by Walter Pratt or Warren Pratt. And that was Friedrichshafen in 2014. We did that. You can produce some really clean looking signals there. Skip Warren's stuff. Modern radio can have knobs. This is for Dennis. He likes to play with his knobs. And the other interface, I call this the C130 interface. If you want knobs, there's a radio with lots of knobs. And here's what a modern radio looks like. That's a C130 actually. Rob, be careful. Here's a 787. And it still has its doors on. Somebody got the joke. That's what a modern interface looks like. All my radios are knobless. I do have one knob thing, but it's a pain. Rarely use it except for testing. Okay, summary. Most important thing, I'm going to add another slide to this. Shut the power off in your house. Find the noise first from your house. Do a breaker test. Second thing, go single point ground. Most people don't realize how much noise you pick up in your ground leads. If your ground lead is 20 feet long, 30, 35, 40 feet long, going to all different places, it's an antenna picking up noise. And most people underestimate how much noise you pick up. Clean up your AC power. Get rid of your wall warts if you can. And the way I got rid of them was just using 5-volt bus, DC bus. Makes a difference. Put a lot of ferrites on it. Put 5-volt. My 5-volt lines all have ferrites, which cleans up a lot of things. My routers have ferrites. My Ethernet cables have ferrites. You can never have too many ferrites. Use battery power to DC. Avoid legacy radios if you can. Use modern radios, which I like. Clean up your transmit. Any questions? Come on, yes. No questions of them? Yes.
I got a question. So you've been advocating this stuff for a decade and everybody's finally caught up. So I wish you had SDR and
Yeah.
very, aggressive price point. The one thing that has not become prevalent yet is this digital pre-distortion.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you touch on that? Because the new icon amplifier, which is coming out, is supposed to be used in the 767
Right.
support this feature.
And the PGXL flex, they support the feature, but it's like that lives software.
Mike. Mike.
Okay. The Warren Pratt invented pre-distortion. What it does is it samples, if we go back to the slides, I can show you the stuff, because I stole Warren's slides. What it does is it samples the output of the radio on the RF side of the amplifier, and it looks at the distortion, goes back into the input side, and it pre-distorts and adds a different kind of, basically negative distortion to the positive distortion, and ends up causing it to go away or causing it to be reduced dramatically. Now there is a bit of a lag in the process, but it's damn pretty good.
How beneficial is it supposed to be?
Guys who I've heard it on the air, the guys who I've heard it and it sounds really good. You don't get any, gets rid of that stuff. It doesn't get rid of noise, but it gets rid of the distortion in the signal because most signals are distorted. Does it make a difference? Makes your key clicks look really clean. So But Warren wrote a very nice paper back in 2014 on it. And like I said, I stole his sides, but we had fun playing. So have I, it's going under the brand name of Pure Signal. So if you see radios with Pure Signal, and I think that's what ICOM stolen. Being Japanese, they probably stole it or paid them. But it does work and makes things very quiet.
In regard to ferrates, do you have a comment, toroid versus snap-ons?
Depends on what you're doing. How much it, toroids have the advantage is you can coil them up. So you can get, and I think it's a cube of the number of turns. So the more turns, it's 3, 6, 9. I have some other pictures. Here's my station. Here's what my station looks like. That's my RF deck, UHF deck. That's my working, it's never this clean ever, I promise you. And I think that Nov's gone to Rob. I give things away all the time. But that's why station look, that's the way my wife would like it to look. It's not how it looks today. I have a camera I can show you live, but I don't want to because it's such a mess. I happen to like a Panadactyr because you can look at, if you're looking for DXCs, you can just see them on the screen and pick them off. Look at all the spots. And I'm spotting people long before anyone else is spotting them. I got 3 bands. I got Tango X-ray 6 George on 3 different bands at the same time spotted. 17 sideband, all different brands. I was working Fox Tango 5 Zulu, and I did that before anyone else heard them. Like I spotted them and put them in the spotting network, probably 3 to 4 hours before anybody else in North America. And so it's skimmer, which I don't admit to using. But you'll see how quiet my stations are. Yeah, I had
On the website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, please. I thought I had some pictures of ferrites. I have some things. Basically, type 31's the one you want. 43s are okay. They're slightly higher frequency, but 31s, you put enough 31s on, you'll probably clear up your noise. The donut ones, the toroids are very good because you can wrap them. You get much higher inductance. A lot of places you've got big heavy cables. You can't do that. Some of my heavier cables, I just put 5 or 6 snap-ons. And when Dennis and I went through, I probably got hundreds of ferrites in my place. I mean, just what? Yeah, we bought hundreds. And we just kept on putting them on things until the noise went away. It does work. It's always amazing how many you have to put on before you get rid of it. But you also have to be crazy, as Dennis and I both are. Any other questions? Come on, somebody else has to. I need one more question.
All right, thank you.
Take this here. El Presidente.
Thank you. Do the folks on Zoom have any questions for Howard?
Great presentation.
All right, great. Let's go on to the business part of the meeting. We do have a new member that's joining, and who has the application, Brian? Okay.
Hey, students. That's the first question.
Yeah, me too. First thing is off with the gift check. Sorry.
Okay, and we have Mark. Mark's been here before, I think before COVID, he came to a meeting and then COVID hit couldn't come back. So today's his second meeting. So he's made application, made the appropriate timeframes. So we'll have to vote on bringing him in. Pardon? Okay, all right. And I don't know, I don't have anything for you, but okay, well, I'll hand you the mic in a moment. You can introduce yourself. Mark's is KI6IT. Got it right? All right. You want to give a little background on yourself? You're used to talking.
Yeah. No, I was licensed in 1963 in St. Louis and lived in New York and Virginia, and I've been here in San Diego at the University of California as a professor for 44 years. I was a prodigy. In case you're doing the math, I came here, I was 7 years old. I work mostly HF, and I like CW and DX, and live in La Costa and operate out of there. And so I thought I'd join the group here. I'm getting ready to retire and put up all sorts of antennas and whatnot. And when my wife is not around, and yeah, and it's nice to come here and listen to everyone. So appreciate it.
You want to put the vote? Yes, we voted in legally. All right.
Aye.
Hey.
Well, this is much better than a faculty meeting.
All right. I guess a new member here. Introduce yourself and let us.
I
know
don't
here.
need the microphone. I coach track and
Well,
field.
here's the
for
trouble.
18 years.
Backs up there.
Oh, okay. So my name's Ted. My call sign's W6TED. Hey, good. It's a nice call sign for doing CW. It belonged to a guy named Bruce, actually, before me, who was up in San Jose, was a member of the IBM Amateur Radio Club. And I've been really active in the Stray Key Century Club for a while. So I became a ham in 2018. I just kind of knew all this stuff. And one of the guys in the club was really pushing me to get that call sign. And I had to do all kinds of research and everything to find his widow, and contacted a bunch of people and eventually got her email address and sent her an email, and she called me up and she was thrilled I wanted his call sign. So it was, I felt really good about that I didn't, she sent me his death certificate to send on the FCC, and that was really nice. So that was the nice story behind getting that call sign. I'm primarily a CW operator. Once in a while I try FT8, but and I'm, even rarer do I actually do sideband or phone. I do a lot of SOTA work. I really enjoy SOTA a lot. I just got so I live in Carmel Valley. I am on the HOA board. Keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. So that helps, but still I'm UHF, VHF, I have a Diamond X510 that's going up 17 feet off my second story balcony, and I get away with that. My neighbors don't seem to mind. And otherwise, I'm just running a 71-foot Palomar Engineers random wire with a 9-to-1 and a, common mode going into the radio. I've been running an ICOM 7610 until a couple of weeks ago. And I just got a K4D, and I have a KPA 500 and a KAT 500. The 7610 was a great radio, but wow, it's noticeable, the difference between the two radios. Talking about quiet. What is interesting though, and I should have asked, talking about S units. So I was reading something in one of the Elecraft Group IO things, and I don't know if it was Rob Sherwood that mentioned it or N6 TV. One of them mentioned that not all radios, some radios are 3 dB per S unit and some radios are 6. I know, right. I think I think Rob said that Kenwood had a switch or a setting that you could change. I'm like, I thought this was supposed to be a definition, not an option. Okay. Right. 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 Okay. So anyway, it was interesting. Where I live, it's very quiet for the most part. Everything's underground. My 7610, so I do an 80-meter CW net every morning at 6:30. And my ICOM, the 7610 was over the last few weeks before I changed the radios out, was giving me an S0 reading. I put the K4D in and it's giving me S3, S4 as a background. It sounds quieter, but I'm just looking at the meter and that's what it's saying.
You have a better.
Right. I know. So is what? That's what I figured. I won't tell that to my friend I sold it to. So anyway, back in the DX contest a couple weeks ago, I've been working hard trying to get, I've had my DXCC for a while, but I wanted my CW endorsement, and that finally, I needed 6 more, and the contest put me over the line. So I finally got my CW endorsement for my DXCC, which that was a big deal for me. So thanks. And that's my story.
Okay, have you filed an application?
I have not.
Go ahead.
Okay, where do I get one?
You go online.
On the website,
website,
yep. Okay.
Download it, and then just send it to the Gmail account. Bob will get it, he's the secretary, and you'll route it to me for money. I'll be looking for your money.
Of course you will.
You can pay there. You for PayPal right online.
Oh, okay, funny place you get it, you guys pay. Fine, okay.
So-
Hi, Martin.
Oh.
So we have a, yeah, okay.
I thought I did, but let me do that again. You mean maybe send it as a
Lou, can you
as
move?
part of the email itself as opposed to an attachment? Okay, thought that's what I did, but maybe it's not in a format you can read.
Click on him and
You know how to do it?
Good, great. Okay, so we need to vote. Anyone opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Welcome to the club. We got his money. We do have one important topic, which has vacated a director at large, and we need a director at large. Does anybody want to it will to fill out Anyone have an interest either on Zoom or? Yeah, okay.
Like a half an hour. Yeah.
The other thing is we've reworked the bylaws and constitution, and we'll bring that for a vote. I wanted to wait till after the first of the year until things settled down. So we're going to bring it to the general membership as a vote, and we're going to try to get it sent out by email, and then everyone can vote either by email or at the meeting to see. It's really not anything too substantial. It's just kind of updating it to say include voting by members can vote via Zoom if they're attending the meeting by Zoom and things of that sort. So look for that in your email box coming up. And does anyone else have any other new business or old business? Dupes, no dupes. If-
Hello. Hello.
Hi, Gail. So we're going to,
Hey, I just,
Go ahead, Gail.
go
Not
ahead.
hearing you.
Now, can you hear me?
so,
Go ahead, Gail.
Yes.
hello. Hello from Morelia in Colonial Mexico. And, this has nothing to do with DX, but, we visited the, biosphere for the Mariposas monarcha yesterday, and hello, but I just want to plug Visalia. So working on the programs, working very hard on the programs and trying to get a good balance for DX and technical, et cetera. So we're just about ready to make those decisions. If you know anyone else that wants to apply to present, please send me an email.
Okay, good. Well, let's open it up for the roundtable. And we'll start with you, Michael, and just pass it around.
Michael, KB6D, talking a lot to Canada. I have no idea why, but they come back. So yeah. Hey, well, they're very considerate. They're amazingly considerate from Saskatchewan and whatever else. And I don't want to say I've known these guys a long time, but they tested both of my sons, but my older son, they tested him when he was little to get his license. And he's getting married next month. I just can't believe it. So he's 25. He's 25 now. He was 12 or 13 when he got his ticket. But yeah, but they tested him. So there you go.
Howard KY6LA. My station is in a strange state right now. Thanks to, it's very quiet. Actually, I'm coming off of it. I've got a pixel loop that works, but the rest, my big tower decided it wanted to go spin around in the wind, and it spun around the wind, and I've got 9 shredded cables. And somebody needs to climb the tower. It's not happening for a while, ever. Who knows? But I got lots of shredded, very expensive cables that need to be replaced completely. And I got to be here for at least 60 days to do that. And I'm never here for 60 days straight. I'm always somewhere else. However, I still run remotely, which is fun. And here's Dennis.
Dennis, N6KI. Good to see everybody. Full house. And let's see, my antenna, my monster stepper got repaired with the help of Axel and his brother, put the 2 elements back on that hadn't been put on for 10 years because I was busy remoting. I didn't need it. And I used it as a 2 element instead of a 4 element stepper, which worked out very well, even at 72 feet. And I've been operating now under my call a lot, even though I do contests. I'm backing off on some of the contests from the remote station that's up in Anza with the 190-foot towers. And so operating more from home. And that's pretty much I don't think there's any new equipment. Not getting a K4. Got some bad reports, unfortunately, from some. Yeah, that's it too. But anyway, I won't mention who, but big contester guy is getting rid of it, and he had interstation interference that only the K4 seems to be subject to. So anyway, it has ups and downs, but they'll get it fixed if they make the real radio with the filters and everything else in it that they said they're going to make, but probably will never. Our main problem is we can't use it because if I put a K4 at the remote station, then all my operators have to get the remote head. Those heads are vaporware right now, and when they come out, they're going to be $2,000 each. I have 10, 12 operators. That ain't going to happen. So that's the end of Elecraft as far as we're going to be living with K3s and shouldn't have to worry. They produce 15,000 K3s. We should be able to get spare parts from those forever. So, but very happy still with the K3 performance. And let's see, the ICOM 7800 was in the hospital, is now out, and going to use that. And that's pretty much it at the N6KI station.
All right. W0NI, Tom. Well, I had a really quiet station for a long, long time with like no HF radio. Although I tried many times to put antennas over the roof and many attempts at different types of antennas. Nothing was really successful. I do have an HOA that I live in. So finally I came to remoting, as it sounds like several of us have. And so thanks to Dennis, he was able to find a K30 mini K3 to remote into his one of his sites he calls Cliffside at Ramona. So I'm just now on the air with that and learning the K3. Yeah, it's complicated and a little kludgy, but it's a pretty cool radio, very high quality. There's no doubt about that. So I plan to have a lot of fun on HF for a while. Over to you.
Randy, KQ6RS. Haven't been too active at my station. Been involved with the Mount Carmel High School Amateur Radio Club. We got 12 students got their technician ticket, so that's pretty cool. Been launching balloons with them. I launched this on 20 Whispers. It's still working. It's about almost day on 20. So
Hi, Steve, KE6FE, and I have one burning question subsequent to Howard's discussion about estimators. How many people in this room have given a signal report of other than 5x9 to a DX station in a pileup? Really? I am amazed. No, just
not in a pileup, but when they,
either, you know, not if you're rag chewing. I'm just saying, with a D expedition, with everybody calling, I have yet to hear any signal report other than 59 or 599. Well, yeah, but yeah, I'm still operating remotely. I managed to work the guys on Clipperton and the Tuamotu province. The only problem I'm having is a lot of these stations come on the air at 2 a.m. or like this morning, I was up at 4 a.m. And just because of the gray line, and so but I keep racking up the 160 contacts, so should be for too long before I get DXCC on 160 meters. Oh. I use remote ham radio. So on the East Coast, the station is in Eastport, Maine. So it's a hop, skip, and a jump to Europe.
You pay by the minute or something?
Yeah, and then on the West Coast, it's Tacoma. And these are all Foursquare steerable antennas and, you know, so on and so forth. So.
I looked at the cost of that.
You don't want to do
They're putting in the tower and everything, you know, it's like, well, you know, it's like $1 a minute, but that's a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
Can you do CW orders? Maybe by not typing in a computer, but actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so
They're all flex.
Yeah.
Do you know Maestro?
No, the way the RHR is set up,
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
You're not sending, you're generating a keyboard.
Right,
Just
right.
The key is actually up there. You're not sending.
So there's no latency here. or anything.
no.
Latency.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Well, it was one thing radio for a while, they were half telegraph, half like snap. Now they're all flex, it seems like.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're all flex, you know, 6,000 series.
People have the maestros to get
No, I do everything off the screen.
the head. Can you use the maestro head?
I believe you can.
You get a head with knobs.
Yeah, which,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Plug your key in.
So like getting a Maestro.
Yeah, there is some, there is, I will say, one thing that is missing with using the computer only is you really, don't get the sense of, being able to to tune. You gotta use the cursor to move the knob on the screen. It's not the same as the good old days. What's that?
So I also live in I live in Lacoste and on top of a hill, and that really helps a lot. I just have a dipole. I have an SDDXC 5000 amplifier. I'm looking to get rid of the off-center fed dipole, but I'm looking now for a tower and looking for camouflage material to to put up, to put up a beam of some sort, take advantage of it a lot better. And so I'll pick people's brains here, but I'm interested in using the tubular type crank up because it blends in with the trees a lot better. And and I've already broken into neighbors with various masts over time. And so that seems to be the way to go. But if anybody knows any good deals on like US towers, that would be great. That's sort of what I'm looking. Okay. Oh, great. Okay, great. All right. So I've gotten my $20 worth already. Thank you.
Noel, AG6KA, nothing to report.
That'll be Donald and 6BTF, nothing to report.
Brian, CAN6MJK. Not been doing a lot of radio recently because I've been working with Randy trying to get all this stuff down, and there's a lot of stuff there. However, I did get a chance to talk to Miguel, and he says if anybody's in need of an expert 2K with an ATU built in with Flex System 6600 series data cable, let him bought one. It was on, and he ended up third amp the same time. One was supposed to be there a year later, and so now he's got that amp. If he wants that, let him know. I don't think it's going to be free. No. Okay. All right. So that's all I have. Danny.
Danny, WB6FWS. But FT8 mainly. I got on today, I think probably for the first time in 3 weeks. Did, basically Europe and whatever, whatever's out there, I worked it. And other than that,
okay. Jerry W6KIN, nothing big to talk about other than working some CW. CW signals are really, boy, they're booming in. So it's been good. But Randy, I wanted to ask you, did that one balloon that was launched,
Was that yours?
No.
but it was last year, wasn't it? Wasn't that ours that they shot down over Alaska? Yeah.
So those, they go high, they don't go far, they'll stay for a long.
Okay.
Randy, the one.
Yeah,
that we-
they're not, so.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was, I didn't show, so I get some emails from some groups that actually absolutely would like for, some of it been up for close to a year, but it wasn't one of the ones that they had. I think they looked at it and decided I wasn't anything to worry about. They did just like shoot an expensive missile at it, you know, at $100. Yeah.
One round.
Which is kind of stuff, like they gave binoculars to see what it was.
Yeah.
Shoot at it.
Too close for rocks.
Steve, K6RSH. I got a problem with HRD. I'm going to be on the phone with them tomorrow morning, hopefully.
Terry and 6CW popped in to see the talk tonight. And other than that, don't have much else to report.
Tom K7YMG, doing CW mostly right now because I'm trying to finish off the DXCC for that. I've got 10 more to go, but a lot of FT8 because it works. And yeah, there's a lot of DX on lately, and been noticing for some reason they're on 10 megahertz a lot. So I've been monitoring that. But anyway, yeah, things have been going pretty good.
Ted, W6TED, think you've heard from me enough already? Over to Bud.
Meeting, there's an awful lot of talk of CW for a change. It's usually all FD8, but I'm still pretty much FD8. I guess I'm gonna have to get the bug warmed up again and maybe play around and try to relearn CW more.
I've been saying that for a couple of years.
Yeah, true. But otherwise, been pretty inactive lately. Just doing other stuff. So.
N6KIM, Joan, I have nothing to report.
Well, you've worked a few new ones here, but I think we'd have to look, yeah, something like that. About 150, I think, yeah. Jim K6ZH, been filling in a lot of band slots between the CW contest and this week. I mean, there's so much activity for these DXpeditions right now. And of course, I think a lot of us were on the CW contest 2 weeks ago, and the conditions were unbelievably good. There wasn't a moment all of Saturday when you couldn't work Europe on some band, including 20 meters in the middle of the afternoon. That was just flabbergasting. But so I checked 10 meters this morning on FT8 because that's the only thing that's on these days until there's a contest. And there were huge signals every part of Europe for hours. So if you can get on the phone at all this weekend, do it. And it's just been amazing.
Yeah. Morocco was on yesterday.
Yeah, roughly about 40 people.
And I didn't make contact with them because I was getting drowned out, but UAE was on. I could hear him great. He was coming in 5'9" this morning. Yeah.
Yeah, Bob W6. Okay. Bob W6ACU, I on all FT8, I've been able to work expeditions. I haven't got the H41 yet, but that's the only one. Interestingly enough. But I just wanted to comment. I don't know if anybody else saw this. The P4 is airport to North Korean cop. And everybody was, he knows it, but like, when you go in. So that's funny.
P95
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
I was like,
Rob WA3IHV, as Jim said, this weekend is the ARRL DX phone contest, and conditions on the higher frequencies have been just spectacular. As I said in the newsletter, it looks like we're peaking on cycle 25. So it's a good time to get your 15 and 10 meter counts up on phone at least. 6 meters isn't part of the DX contest.
actually, it wasn't there. I checked all weekend and 6 was not there. It's just a bummer.
We'll go
A
to
lot of TE on 6.
We'll go to the Zoom people. Bob, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. No news, but very happy to see everybody.
Great newsletter as always.
Great newsletter, and stay warm.
Thank you very much.
Gail and Bob, you're up. You're still muted. Oh, what did I say? Oh,
Not sure who Bob is. Bob's not here.
He's right behind you.
As Gail said, I'm trying to keep the spotlight out of the camera. As Gail said, we are in mainland Mexico now on a vacation from our vacation home down in Cabo. And of course, we don't have too much activity there. We can operate illegally occasionally, make a contact on SSB or FT8. But, you know, when we were home in January, we worked the Clipperton pretty easy, good, easy shot from the West Coast. Let me just switch the camera around here and show you. We're on right on the main drag of Morelia. Here's the main cathedral right across the street. Beautiful building. And there's been motorcycle drag races here tonight or something. I'm not sure. But that's all.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Built in the 1600s, and there's a lot of history in this town. It's beautiful. And we went up to, as Gail said, we went to see the Monarch Reserve 2 days ago, and it was amazing. Thousands and thousands of monarchs. Yeah.
Ditto. I think I said what I had to say earlier, and if you're my Facebook friend, you can see great photos of what we've been seeing.
Gail, I saw a note from the Visalia crowd that HRO is not going to be there and none of the large vendors. Have they looked at having Gigaparts or someone like that perhaps on the floor?
Yes, and I'll look into that one. I didn't bring all my notes on this trip, but we have a lot of the smaller vendors, lots, but the big guys are just don't want to be there. I think I heard today there was an email that Eric is going to both present and display
Elecraft.
for Elecraft. So that's really good. But that part of it is disappointing. But we've got some great presentations, great DX, great technical. But you're right. You read that correctly.
Yeah. Okay.
There's going to be 3 tracks this year, which is unusual.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we may have 3 presentations per session because so many people applied. So that's where it's like building a high school master schedule. Got to decide between always a DX, but then probably a technical and a human interest, and try to divide them out that way.
Great. Well, we look forward to it.
Yep.
Stay well. Anyone else have any more new business? Brian, do you want to do the raffle? So we have a raffle for the people present here.
Those who haven't been, the officers will pull a name, and first you get to choose one of the There's 5 items this time. There's a, 6-pack of Guinness. I love Guinness. There's 2 different bottles of red wine. Pick one. Danny brought one of those red wine bottles. And then he also brought this, water container, says, I'm a DXer. I CQ DX, I chase DX, I work DX. I Q myself DX, I DX. And then there's, for those who are not into the alcohol or whatever, there are some cookies from, I think there's Scotland.
Oh, those are the
Walkers.
Oh, yeah.
There's the Walkers shortbread.
Oh,
None of them your doctor will like.
no. Never been a shortbread I didn't like, but.
Okay. If you would pick one for me.
Oh,
She could pick her own.
That would work. It's happened before. All right, who we got here?
Oh, Doug, too.
Pick one. Pick one.
That one.
Okay. Okay, first pick, Steve. K6RSH. All right, Steve. Get it.
Unlike the Christmas party, you can't steal the gifts.
Yeah.
No. I don't. So,
I'm gonna give somebody else a ticket.
Oh, he took the cookies.
Have him draw the next one.
Yeah, have him draw the next one.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Come on down here. Draw. If you draw. Just one.
Just one? There's one.
All right, we have, it looks like K6KIM. Joe. What would you like, Joe? And I'll get it for you. What would you like? They're both, the wines are a red blend. Both of them, they're the same brand.
One of the reds.
Okay, one of the red.
One of the reds.
Does the water thing come with it or?
No,
No,
one, it's separate. You still have a chance, Jim. Your name's still in there. Okay. You already drew. So, let's see, new guy. You'd probably be good if you don't draw your own.
That would,
That it?
that would
Okay.
look good. That is mine.
What would you like? What would you like?
Wow.
You could have done that every minute.
What are the chances?
I don't know. It's happened once before. The beer.
Just for practicing.
No. That's got all the vitamins. And
I know.
nutrients a man needs. Well, you already picked. Why don't you pick another one? We got a couple more things to go here.
Yeah, Danny, pick yourself.
Well, he brought the last 2 things, so
That's good.
which one do you want? Give me the one you want.
Don't give it to me.
Which one, which one's going in?
Open this one.
Okay, that's the one you want. Okay. Don.
Got a camera? Wait, this side of. You guys pick. You know why, you know why.
Another new guy. Why don't you pick? So somebody's gonna get that water container there. Get my fingers out of the way.
Yeah, it's us.
That's just.
Some qualitative.
Okay. Rob, WA3IHD. Okay, passes. Give another. All right, because these guys on the side, right in the beach. All right. Dennis, N6KI.
Balance.
Yeah, somebody over here got something.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
You're gonna send me those, the winners, okay?
That's why I wrote their names down.
Thank you, everyone. Does anyone have anything else to discuss tonight? Okay, well,
Motion that we, during the meeting.
great. Howard, again, thank you for a terrific talk. Everyone have a great evening, drive carefully, and we'll see you next week. Or next month, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Randy,